We're moving out from Midtown Manhattan tonight, taking papers to distributors, but if the day was any indication, those papers may never make it to the readers. Carlos Granda reports.
Not a very good situation, is it?
That's the way most customers felt at O'Neill's Country Store in Mamaroneck. Normally here they sell 450 copies of the Sunday Times. This Sunday they only had a few sections of the paper. Frank Brown still paid full price for the Arts and Leisure section, the book review, the Times Magazine, and some sales flyers.
I think it stinks. I really think it's horrible.
Security guards patrol the entrance. Yesterday, a delivery truck had its cargo torched. Similar incidents have caused distribution headaches for the last 3 days. This labor dispute started after 240 union workers were replaced by new employees. A judge issued a restraining order against the union to keep workers from interfering with the paper's distribution. A hearing is set for Monday to determine if the union violated that order. In Mamaroneck, Carlos Granda, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Now, union drivers voted down a contract that would have cut some salaries in half and given management even more control.
A risky business as drivers' dispute heads into its third day now. There have been truck burnings and today rock throwing. Perry Peltz is in the newsroom with the latest. Perry?
Well, Ralph, the trucks are loaded as usual tonight to get the New York Times delivered. But the question is, will the papers make it to their destinations?
If you live on Long Island or Westchester, what is fit to print you may not have been able to read. Locked out drivers kept up the pressure in a 3-day-old labor dispute. In Long Island, a 38-year-old man was arrested after he allegedly rammed his car into 2 tractor trailers at a Long Island distribution center. It's just one of several incidents designed to keep the New York Times from being delivered. In New Rochelle, at another distribution center, the picket lines were noticeably smaller, but the sentiment remains the same.
The New York Times is not getting their product to the dealers, to the home delivery, so their advertisers are going to start asking them what is going on here. I mean, you're talking about 300,000 copies are not making it to the stores. So I think it's working.
According to the New York Times, distribution on the island and in Westchester was cut down to 50%.
We haven't received the Times, but many people are asking for it.
Here at Goffman's Deli in New Rochelle, they usually sell about 60 copies of the New York Times each Sunday. But as you can see, the stand is empty, and it's not because they sold out.
Asking for the New York Times, yeah. A lot of people asking for them.
The dispute began when the Newspaper and Mail Deliverers Union voted down a contract that would have given management more control and cut some salaries. Non-union workers were brought in as replacements. A federal judge ordered drivers to deliver the papers, but these people say the picket remains effective, and they have no intentions of signing the contract.
It stinks. It's a horrible contract. It's unilateral management rights. They're going to ship freight out of here. You have no more bargaining procedures, and we couldn't live with it.
Well, the Times says a lot of people on the island and in Westchester did not receive their papers, although they say the situation is improving. They say the problem is not getting the papers to the wholesalers, but getting the paper to the individual distribution points. McGee, Ralph?
All right, Perry, thank you. Now is telling
Connecticut or to Long Island. Last week, the Times fired drivers after they rejected a contract for suburban distribution. They were replaced with non-union drivers. Over the weekend, 3 union members were arrested and charged with throwing rocks at a Times truck. Another man who said he's related to union members was also arrested. Cops say he rammed his car into 2 Times delivery trucks.
A judge will determine whether the union violated a temporary restraining order. Many people in Westchester, Connecticut, and Long Island can't find the New York Times. Deliveries were down about 50% because of violence aimed at a private distribution company. The president of that company, Imperial Delivery Service, took out a full-page ad today in the Times to boost employee morale and to refute rumors about the company.
Foreman for a newspaper distribution center where union drivers were replaced was kidnapped at gunpoint Saturday night, stripped and physically abused before being released 12 hours later. This, as a judge right here at the U.S. Courthouse, is currently right now considering whether to fine the union for allegedly violating court orders. This is the new sign of the times as union drivers continue picketing. At this Farmingdale distribution plant, only a dozen pickets are allowed by court order, but several dozen were there this morning. Other picketers were at the New Rochelle distribution center. Although delivery trucks got out, papers often did not get to stores like this one.
I came special for Times today. No Times is getting to be disgusting that I can't get a Times.
New York Times management says more than 90% of its papers got out today.
If you are hearing that these acts are succeeding in stopping the newspaper from being delivered, then you are hearing wrong.
But in random checks, we found many newspaper bins empty and limited home delivery. The trouble began last week when union drivers rejected a contract offer their leadership recommended, so replacement drivers got behind the wheels. Friday, a judge ordered union workers not to interfere with distribution of the Times, but the Times says it's had plenty of problems.
We've had punctured brake lines on some of our trucks, where we've had tires slashed, and most dangerously of all, a lighted flare which was placed into a truck along with the bundles of newspapers.
While the Times management says it hopes the union members revote and accept the contract, the owner of the distribution center says following the violence, the deal is off.
I won't hire hoodlums and gangsters. That's the end.
The drivers' union had not returned phone calls as of airtime tonight. The Times says that this conflict is hurting financially. Already the losses are said to be in the millions of dollars. Reporting live from Lower Manhattan, I'm Edie Tarbox, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Thank you. After they rejected his contractual offer, Arthur Imperatore says over the weekend, union workers kidnapped and beat one of his replacement drivers. An angry Imperatore was asked today if there's any way he'll resume negotiations with the union.
I'll answer that question. I won't hire hoodlums and gangsters. That's the end. They were on notice. He doesn't speak for me on that point. I will not hire these kind of people.
Officials at the New York Times still hope a deal can be worked out between Imperatore and the union.
Coming up, workers' thugs accusing them of roughing up a driver who crossed the union picket line. Tim Malloy standing by live right now to picket line in New Rochelle with the latest on this very bitter labor battle. Tim?
Well, that's right, Cuddy. As you know, we're 4 days into this dispute, and it's pretty clear that nobody is winning. The New York Times is getting the majority of its papers out, but is losing millions of dollars. The drivers' union facing possible legal action and charges of criminal activity. The dispute has been angry and ugly, but according to the Times, union tactics have been increasingly ineffective.
Things have gotten better since the last time we have spoken.
The heckling makes good copy and exciting TV pictures, but the New York Times says 92% of its Monday papers made it to readers' hands. An ugly allegation surfacing today. A New Jersey distributor who replaced 240 union strikers says a replacement deliverer was pulled at gunpoint from his car in Connecticut, kidnapped and beaten. He vows now to disassociate himself from the union.
I'm talking about the gangsters. I'm talking about the hoodlums, the lawbreakers, the terrorists.
And the Times publisher angrily denouncing a pattern of sabotage on delivery trucks.
Now, we've had punctured brake lines on some of our trucks, where we've had tires slashed, and most dangerously of all, a lighted flare which was placed into a truck along with the bundles of newspapers. As you probably know, that truck burst into flames on Madison Avenue in the 90s and has been totally destroyed.
In light of all that, the New York Times today filed this complaint in federal court against the drivers' union, citing 14 separate acts of alleged violence and vandalism. At the same time, in other parts of the city, efforts being made to bring all sides together to try to cool things off. The Times, however, may not participate, and faced with up to a 50% pay cut under the new contract's overtime slashing provision, the drivers don't look amenable to a sit-down. No assaults, no rock throwing here, but clearly not a happy crowd. A group, incidentally, that's hotly contesting charges that anybody was kidnapped and assaulted up in Connecticut. The trucks that go down this hill, and a few have gone by, the drivers are being heckled, but they are not being stopped because for legal reasons these guys cannot block the trucks. However, they are bound for Connecticut with the newspapers, and as one guy here told me, just because they're getting past this checkpoint doesn't mean the New York Times tomorrow will be on the doorsteps or at the dealers of Connecticut. Live in New Rochelle, I'm Tim Malloy. We'll go back to the studio.